They told me I was too old to travel with them. Said it kindly, the way people do when they've already decided your place is behind them. They asked me to watch the house, water the plants, keep everything exactly as it was while they went on living. And I smiled, because that's what I'd learned to do. But what they didn't know was that something in me finally went quiet that night, not with anger, not with tears, but with clarity. And 3 days later, while they were still packing sunscreen and expectations, I was holding a boarding pass of my own, about to find out what happens when a woman stops waiting to be included and chooses herself instead. So let me tell you how it actually happened. They said it over coffee like it was practical, like it made sense. You're too old for long flights, Grandma. Just stay here and watch the house. I remember nodding. I remember stirring my tea long after the sugar had dissolved. And I remember the sound of their laughter drifting out the door as they loaded their suitcases into that big black van, talking about beaches and seafood and how nice it would be to finally relax. They didn't look back. I waved anyway. I didn't say a word because after a certain age, you learn that silence keeps the peace, even when it costs you something. The house felt bigger once they were gone. Not empty, just expectant, like it was waiting for me to sit down and become invisible again. The next morning, I found the plane tickets in my mailbox. Still sealed, still crisp, still warm from the sun. Athens. 2 adults, 2 children, seats together. My name wasn't anywhere on them. Of course it wasn't. I brought the envelope inside, set it on the kitchen table, and made myself tea. That's what you do when something punches you in the chest at my age. You make tea and wait for your hands to stop shaking. But they didn't. The tickets sat there between the salt shaker and the mail I hadn't opened yet, like they were waiting for me to notice them properly. I stood at the counter longer than necessary, reading the fine print even though none of it mattered. Departure time. Gate number. Seat assignments pressed together like a family that knew where it belonged. I told myself not to read into it. That's what I'd always done, not read into things. It kept life simpler. Quieter. I picked up the envelope and felt how light it was. 4 tickets, 4 people moving forward. And me standing still. Again. I poured hot water over a tea bag and watched the steam rise, soft and patient. My hands were shaking, just slightly. Not enough to drop anything, enough to notice. I sat at the kitchen table where I'd eaten breakfast for 37 years, the same chair, the one closest to the window. Outside, the maple tree was shedding leaves early this year. Everything felt like it was preparing to move on without asking permission. I told myself they hadn't meant to hurt me. They never did. That was the problem. I found my old address book in the drawer beside the fridge, the one with curled edges and ink fading into itself. The travel agency number was still there, written in my husband Paul's handwriting. He'd handled things like that. Details. Dates. The small moving parts of life that kept everything running. I dialed. The girl on the other end sounded young, bright, awake in a way I hadn't been for a long time. I'd like to cancel these tickets, I said. There was a pause, keyboard clicking, a small inhale. May I ask why, ma'am? No, I said, not sharply, just firmly. Another pause. Then, of course, I wrote down the confirmation number with care, folding the paper twice before placing it beside my cup. My tea had gone cold. I didn't mind. For a while, I just sat there. The house hummed the way it always did. Refrigerator cycling, clock ticking, the faint echo of someone else's life still pressed into the walls. Paul's photograph watched me from the mantel. He was young in it, too young, smiling like he knew something the rest of us hadn't figured out yet. If he were here, this wouldn't have happened. Or maybe it would have, but he would have noticed. He always noticed when I went quiet. I'd been many things in this house. A wife, a nurse when Paul got sick, a secretary when my son was starting his business, a cook, a babysitter, a keeper of calendars and spare keys and quiet emergencies. And then, somewhere along the way, just Grandma. Not Helen, not Mom. Just useful. I didn't resent it. That's important to say. I loved my family, still do. But love can make you small if you let it, and I'd let it for a very long time. I looked at the envelope again. Then, without planning to, I opened the drawer beneath the phone. My passport was still there. Valid, unused. A little worn around the edges, like me. I checked my bank account. I'd always been careful. Quietly careful. A little over $12,000 in savings. A few bonds Paul insisted on. No debt. No one depending on me day to day anymore, even if they liked to pretend they did. I didn't say, I'm gonna do something reckless. I didn't say anything at all. I booked a flight. 1 seat. Aisle. Athens. My finger hovered over the confirmation button longer than it should have. That was fear, I think. Or maybe habit. The habit of waiting for someone else to say yes. Then I clicked it. The sound a computer made was small, insignificant, but it felt like something closing behind me. I called my neighbor Carol next. She answered on the second ring, breathless like she'd been mid-movement. Hey, hon. Carol, I said, could you water the plants for a bit? Of course. Everything okay? Yes, I said, and for once it wasn't a lie. I'm taking a little trip. Oh, she sounded pleased. Good for you. Where to? Somewhere I've never been. She laughed. Bring me back something tacky. I promised I would. I packed that evening. 1 small suitcase. Nothing dramatic. Comfortable shoes. My best scarf. A navy blue dress I hadn't worn since Paul's funeral. Not because it made me sad, but because it made me feel like someone who still knew how to stand tall. I found myself folding things slowly, deliberately, savoring the quiet. That night, I sat on the porch as the sun went down. The street was still, the kind of still that only exists in familiar places. I thought about what they'd say when they realized I wasn't home. Maybe they'd call, maybe they wouldn't. For the first time, it didn't matter. The morning came gently. I locked the door, left a note for Carol, and walked down the steps without looking back. Not because I was angry, because I was done rehearsing goodbyes no one noticed. At the airport, the gate agent glanced at my passport and smiled. That careful rehearsed smile people use when they see someone old traveling alone. Enjoy your flight, ma'am. I nodded and walked on, gripping my suitcase with one hand and my boarding pass with the other like it could protect me from doubt. The airport was loud, metallic, all glass and motion and lives colliding and passing. But I moved through it like I belonged there, because pretending you belong is something you get very good at when you've spent years feeling optional. On the plane, I took my seat and sat still while people rushed around me, stuffing bags overhead, apologizing, not apologizing. The seat beside me stayed empty until the last moment. Then a man about my son's age dropped into it with a tired sigh. Long trip? He asked. Long enough, I said. He smiled and turned toward the window. I appreciated that. Silence can be a kindness. I slept in pieces. Not deeply. The kind of sleep that keeps you from unraveling. When I woke, we were over the Mediterranean. Endless blue stretched beneath us, calm and unapologetic. That was when it settled in. I wasn't here to make a point. I wasn't here to punish anyone. I was here because they told me not to be. And for the first time in a long while, I was going anyway. Athens greeted me with heat that didn't apologize. It wrapped around my shoulders the moment I stepped outside the airport, heavy and dry, like a hand resting there to remind me I was somewhere else now. I moved slower than everyone around me, not because I was lost, but because I was taking it in. The voices, the horns, the way the air smelled faintly of dust and something fried. I took a taxi to a small pension tucked away on a narrow street. Nothing fancy. Clean sheets. A desk fan that rattled a little when it turned. The woman at the front desk called me madam in a way that didn't feel dismissive. Just respectful, like it still meant something. In my room, I set my suitcase against the wall and sat on the edge of the bed. For a long time, I didn't move. Grief doesn't always come as tears. Sometimes it arrives as stillness, the kind that asks you who you are, when no one is expecting anything from you. That evening, I walked a few blocks and found a small bakery. I pointed at bread, olives, a pastry I couldn't pronounce. The waiter didn't rush me. Didn't fill the silence with questions. I ate slowly, watching people pass, and for the first time in years, I didn't check my phone. No one was waiting for an update from me anyway. The next morning I woke early. Light spilled through the shutters, softer than back home. I opened them and let it in. Then I did something I hadn't done in a very long time. I put on lipstick. Just a little. The shade I used to wear before everything in my life became practical and muted. I didn't do it for anyone. No mere audience. Just because I wanted to see my face look like it remembered itself. At the front desk, I asked for somewhere quiet. Not the places everyone posts about. The young woman thought for a moment, then wrote something down. Anaphiotica, she said. Very peaceful. She was right. White houses clung to the hillside, like they'd decided to stay no matter what. Narrow alleys twisted and turned. Cats slept in doorways as if they owned the place. Flowers spilled out of chipped pots with no concern for symmetry. I walked until my feet ached, then sat on a stone bench and simply existed. Young couples passed, laughing, loud with certainty. No one looked at me twice. No one asked who I was waiting for. No one told me I was too old. I thought of my granddaughter, Amelia, 16, all energy and opinions, sending me filtered photos and voice notes with too much background noise. I wondered what she'd say if she saw me here. Probably laugh. Maybe roll her eyes. I smiled at the thought. At a small shop, I bought a postcard. I hadn't planned to write, but my hand moved on its own. Dear Amelia, guess where I am? Greece. The sea is bluer than you'd believe. I hope you're well. Love, Grandma. I didn't write to my son. Or his wife. They didn't need to know yet. That night, back in my room, I realized I was humming. An old tune Paul used to sing while shaving. I hadn't thought of it in years. I wasn't young. I wasn't fearless. But I was somewhere I'd chosen. That counted. I didn't expect to meet anyone. That wasn't the point. But life has its own timing, and it rarely checks with you first. It happened at breakfast 2 days later. I was sitting near the window, buttering toast with more care than necessary, when a voice from the next table said, "You're using too much butter." I looked up, surprised and amused. "Better than too little," I said. The woman smiled. She had silver hair pulled into a practical bun, glasses perched low on her nose, and eyes that missed very little. "Fair," she said. "I'm Rosalie." We talked the way people our age do, easily, without performance. She was traveling alone too, retired school principal. Widowed, she added, like it was just another detail, not a wound. We started walking together after that. Morning strolls through quieter streets. She noticed things I would have passed by. A cracked shutter-painted lilac, a dog sleeping beside a statue, the way the light shifted on stone around noon. At lunch, under a vine-covered terrace, she asked, "And your family?" "They're fine," I said, then paused. "They just thought I was too old to travel." Her eyes sharpened slightly. "They said that?" I nodded. She didn't gasp, didn't offer sympathy like a gift. She took a sip of her wine and said, "You're here, so they were wrong." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the times I'd stayed in my lane, the parties I cooked for but never enjoyed, the trips I helped pay for but wasn't invited on, how often I told myself, "They're just busy." The next morning, Rosalie knocked on my door, holding a folded map. "Florence," she said, "I've always wanted to see the Uffizi." I hesitated. Old instincts tugged at me. "Don't be difficult. Don't be impulsive." "Why not?" I said instead. We booked the train tickets that afternoon. Two women over 70, buying one-way seats, like girls, on summer break. We laughed over dinner, but something in me still felt tight, like an old muscle learning to move again. That evening, my phone buzzed. A message from my daughter-in-law. "Did you check the garden? The sprinkler's acting up." "No. How are you?" "No. Where are you?" I didn't reply. I packed slowly, folding the navy dress, tucking my pearls away. In the corner of my room sat a small vase of daisies. A gift from Rosalie. "You look like someone who appreciates flowers without needing a reason," she'd said. That night, I placed my phone in the drawer and turned it off. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone waiting to be included. I felt like someone moving forward. The train to Florence left just after 9. Rosalie read a mystery novel in French, her glasses balanced low on her nose. I watched the countryside slide by, soft hills, stitched vineyards, towns that looked like they'd been waiting a long time to be noticed. The motion was gentle, the kind that makes your thoughts loosen their grip. Paul once bought a painting at a flea market. Cheap frame, fading colors. He said it reminded him of places he'd never been. I never thought I'd see anything like it for myself. We didn't talk much. That was Rosalie's gift. She didn't try to fill space. When the train rocked slightly, she offered me the last croissant without a word. I took it and smiled. That was enough. Florence felt warm and close. Narrow streets, red roofs, voices bouncing off stone. Our hotel was old and imperfect. The keys were heavy, the elevator creaked, and the windows opened onto laundry lines strung like quiet confessions between buildings. Standing in front of the birth of Venus, something in my chest shifted. Not awe exactly, recognition. Beauty didn't shout, it waited. Later, at a cafe, the waiter flirted with Rosalie, and she flirted right back. She had a way of enjoying attention without pretending she needed it. I admired that. That night, back in the room, I checked my phone. 24 missed calls. 14 from my daughter-in-law. The rest from my son. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I just scrolled. "Where are you? Are you okay?" "The kids are upset." One message stopped me. "Mom, please call. We thought you'd be home." I stared at the screen, waiting to feel something sharp. Anger, guilt, fear. What I felt instead was space. Not cruelty, just distance. Enough to breathe. The next morning, while Rosalie slept in, I wandered alone. I followed my nose, not a map. Found a shop selling linen skirts and silver earrings. Tried both. Bought neither. It felt good to choose without obligation. That afternoon, we took the bus up the hill and watched Florence from above. The city spread out below us, layered and patient. "This," I said quietly. Rosalie nodded. "Yes." Back at the hotel, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail from my son. His voice tired, clipped. "Did you cancel our vacation on purpose?" I turned the phone off. That night, Rosalie asked, "Where next?" I thought for a moment. "Lisbon," she grinned. "Always wanted to hear Fido live." Lisbon welcomed us like an old friend. Warm, worn, humming, with music you didn't need to understand to feel. The sidewalks shimmered after rain. The city felt defiant in a gentle way, like it had learned how to endure without hardening. Rosalie wasn't feeling well that day. Nothing serious, but enough. I stayed in. Made tea. Read aloud until she drifted to sleep. Sitting there, watching her breathe, I realized something. I'd spent my life taking care of people because I was needed. This felt different. It felt chosen. That night, I cooked for us. Eggs, bread, tomatoes from a corner vendor who smiled like we were old acquaintances. We ate on the balcony wrapped in shawls. Thank you, Rosalie said. For the eggs? For staying. The next morning, a man played Fado in the square below. His voice cracked in places, but it didn't matter. The song found me anyway. I turned my phone back on. A message from my daughter-in-law. This isn't funny, Helen. Then another from my son. You've made your point, had I? I hadn't said a word. That night, in a small fado bar, I sat with my eyes closed while a woman sang about longing and being left behind. She wasn't singing to me, but I understood every word. The letter came under our door sometime during the night. No envelope, just my name. I knew the handwriting before I unfolded it. Mom, we don't understand what you're doing. The kids are confused, Amelia cried. If you're trying to punish us, you've made your point. Please come home. There was no, I'm sorry, no, we didn't see you. Just concern for the disruption. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer. Rosalie raised an eyebrow over breakfast. Weak penmanship? I laughed. It surprised me. Later, sitting alone by the river, pigeons arguing at my feet, I thought of Amelia, 16, curious, still watching. I typed a message. Sweetheart, I'm fine. I'm traveling. Not angry, just needed a bit of sky, she replied quickly. You look happy. That night, in Seville, the heat pressed down like a living thing. Flamenco echoed through a courtyard. A woman danced, older than us, her feet striking the floor like a promise. I watched, heart full. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't running. I was learning how to be visible, even if it made people uncomfortable. And for the first time, I wasn't apologizing for it. Seville stayed with me longer than I expected. Not the heat, though it pressed into my bones, but the way the city refused to apologize for its presence. Life spilled out of windows there. Music echoed late into the night. Even the quiet felt intentional, like a pause instead of an absence. One afternoon, sitting under an orange tree in a small courtyard, I finally listened to the voicemail I'd been avoiding. My son's voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Mom, I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know what I broke. But I miss you. I didn't call back right away. Not because I wanted him to worry. Because I wanted to answer honestly. And honesty takes time when you've been swallowing it for decades. That evening, Rosalie and I went dancing. Not carefully, not politely. We weren't good at it. My knees protested. Her balance wobbled. But we laughed, the kind that comes from lungs that haven't been fully used in years. On the walk home, she said, You know, people think freedom looks loud. Sometimes it just looks like choosing yourself quietly. That night, I slept deeply. The kind of sleep that comes when something inside you has finally settled into place. I booked my return flight 2 days later, not because I was done, but because I was ready. The airport didn't feel like surrender. It felt like punctuation. On the plane, I didn't distract myself with movies or books. I watched the clouds pass, thought about the woman I'd been when I left, and the one who was coming back. I wasn't younger. I wasn't braver. But I was no longer invisible. When I landed, no one was waiting. I hadn't told them my arrival time. The house smelled the same when I unlocked the door. Clean. Familiar. Carol had watered the plants. The ivy had grown a little wild. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table, letting the quiet stretch. This time, it didn't feel like absence. It felt like space I owned. My phone buzzed. Are you home? Amelia. Yes. Can I come over? Doors open. She arrived 20 minutes later, breathless, backpack slipping off one shoulder. She hugged me without asking, tight and sure, like she was afraid I might disappear again. You're different, she said, pulling back. So are you, I replied. We sat on the floor and talked about her art class, about a boy she liked, about the way her parents had been arguing quietly for days. She didn't ask me to explain myself. She didn't need to. The doorbell rang an hour later. She looked at me. "That's them." I nodded. David stood in the doorway like someone entering unfamiliar ground. Laura hovered behind him, unsure. "I didn't know how to start," he said. "You just did." I answered. We sat at the table, not close, not far. "I didn't leave to punish you," I said eventually. "I left because I was tired of disappearing." Laura's eyes filled, but she didn't interrupt. "I love my family," I continued. "But love doesn't mean shrinking. I won't be the person who stays behind anymore. If I'm included, it's because you want me there, not because you need someone to watch the house." David nodded slowly. "I see that now." We didn't fix everything that night. We didn't try. They stayed an hour. Maybe less. When they left, David paused at the door. "Dinner sometime?" he asked. "Just us?" "Maybe," I said, and meant it. After they were gone, I stood in the living room and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because things were perfect, because they were honest. Later that week, Amelia brought me a drawing. Me, standing by the sea, scarf in my hair, arms open. She looks like she remembered who she was. She'd written beneath it. I placed it beside Paul's photo. He would have smiled. These days, I still make tea in the mornings. I still sit by the window. Some habits deserve to stay. But I also say no when I mean it. I leave when I want to go. And I don't wait to be asked anymore. They once told me I was too old to travel. What they didn't understand was this. I wasn't too old. I was just done waiting. And once a woman learns that, really learns it, there's no going back to watching the house.